I, 28F, stood beside the man I had just married. His name was Mark. The wedding was everything I had ever dreamed of. It was perfect. We were about to cut the cake. A beautiful, five-tiered creation that had cost a small fortune. My hand was over his on the silver knife. Our photographer was telling us to smile. Everyone we loved was gathered around us, their faces happy and bright. It was the best moment of my life. I felt a deep sense of peace. I felt like everything was finally falling into place. Then the doors to the reception hall burst open. A woman stood there. I knew who she was. Her name was Sarah. She was Mark's ex-girlfriend. He had told me they ended things years ago. He said it was a bad breakup. He said she was a little unstable. I never asked for details. I did not want to know. I trusted him. He was my husband now. Sarah walked toward us. She was not smiling. Her eyes were fixed on Mark. She was holding a bundle in her arms. A baby carrier. The room started to get quiet. The happy chatter died down. People turned to look at her. I felt a cold knot form in my stomach. Mark's hand tensed under mine. His smile was gone. He looked like he had seen a ghost. She did not stop until she was right in front of us. She looked at me, then at Mark. She did not say a word. She just lifted the baby carrier. Then she pushed it into my arms. I stumbled back a step. I had to let go of the cake knife to hold it. Inside the carrier was a small baby, sleeping peacefully. The baby had Mark's dark hair. The entire reception went dead silent. You could hear a pin drop. The music had stopped. The photographer lowered his camera. I looked down at the baby, then up at Mark. His face was white. He could not look at me. He was staring at Sarah. Then Sarah spoke. Her voice was loud and clear in the silent room. "He is yours, Mark," she said. "His name is Leo. He is 6 months old. It is about time you introduced him to your new wife." I felt the weight of the baby carrier in my arms. It felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. I looked at Mark. I needed him to say something. I needed him to deny it. I needed him to tell me this was some horrible joke. He just stood there, frozen. He said nothing. His silence was the answer. It was the loudest sound I had ever heard. My perfect day shattered into a million tiny pieces. The dream was over. This was my new reality. A baby I had never seen. A husband with a secret I never knew. And a room full of people watching my world fall apart. My mother was the first to move. She rushed to my side. She gently took the baby carrier from my arms. Her face was a mask of anger and concern. "Let's go, sweetie," she whispered. My father was right behind her. He put a protective arm around my shoulders. He glared at Mark with a look that could have curdled milk. "Mark, what is the meaning of this?" My father's voice boomed. Mark finally seemed to snap out of his trance. He looked from Sarah to me, his eyes wide with panic. "Amelia, I can explain," he stammered. "This is not what it looks like." "It looks like you have a son," I said. My voice was flat. I felt nothing. It was like I was watching a movie about someone else's life. Sarah laughed. It was a cold, bitter sound. "Oh, he knew," she said, her eyes still locked on Mark. "He has known since before Leo was born. He just asked me to wait, to be patient. He said he would handle it after the wedding." She then looked at me. I guess this is him handling it. My maid of honor, Chloe, stepped forward. She stood between me and them. She was my best friend. She was fiercely loyal. "You need to leave," Chloe said to Sarah. "Right now." Sarah did not flinch. "I am not going anywhere until he acknowledges his son," she replied. Mark's mother, Eleanor, finally made her way through the crowd. She went straight to Mark, ignoring me completely. She put a hand on his arm. I watched her face. I expected to see shock. I expected to see confusion, but I did not. I saw something else. I saw annoyance. I saw a flicker of something that looked like resignation. It was not the face of a woman who was surprised. It was the face of a woman whose inconvenient secret had just been revealed. That single look told me more than Mark's silence ever could. He had not just lied to me. They had lied to me. The silence in the room was finally broken by whispers. Guests were looking at each other, their faces a mix of pity and morbid curiosity. My beautiful wedding reception had turned into a public spectacle. The cake stood there, uncut. The champagne flutes were still full. The life I thought I was starting was over before it even began. My father took my arm. "We are leaving," he said firmly. He led me toward the exit. Chloe and my mother followed close behind. I did not look back at Mark. I could not. If I looked at him, the numbness would break, and I did not know what would be underneath. I just walked. I walked out of my reception, away from my new husband and away from the life I had so carefully built. The doors closed behind me, shutting out the whispers and the stares. I was in the hallway of the venue, still in my wedding dress. The night was supposed to be about celebrating our future. Instead, it was the end of it. And in that moment, all I could think was that this was not just a betrayal. This was a conspiracy. And I had been the only one not in on the secret. My parents drove me to a hotel. They did not ask many questions on the way. I think they knew I had no answers. I sat in the back of the car, my white dress feeling like a costume from a play that had ended badly. Chloe sat next to me, holding my hand. Her presence was a small, warm anchor in a sea of cold shock. When we got to the hotel, my mother helped me out of the dress. It was a complicated gown with 100 tiny buttons down the back. As she undid each one, I felt like she was peeling away the layers of the person I had been just a few hours ago. The bride, the happy wife. Underneath, I was just a woman who had been made a fool of in front of everyone she knew. My father had booked 2 adjoining rooms, one for me and Chloe, and one for him and my mom. He was a practical man. He knew I should not be alone. After I changed into a simple t-shirt and sweatpants the hotel provided, I sat on the edge of the bed. I stared at the wall. I could not cry. I could not scream. I just felt empty. "Do you want to talk about it?" Chloe asked softly. I shook my head. "There is nothing to say," I said. "He has a baby. He lied." "He did more than lie, Amelia," she said, her voice tight with anger. "He humiliated you. He let you walk down that aisle and say those vows, knowing this was waiting." She was right. It was the calculation that hurt the most. He had made a choice every single day to deceive me. He had looked me in the eyes and talked about our future, our children, our life together, all while he had a whole other life hidden away. There was a knock on the door to the adjoining room. My father opened it. It was Mark. My heart hammered against my ribs. I was not ready to see him. I was not ready for the excuses. "She does not want to see you," my father said. His voice was low and dangerous. "I need to talk to my wife," Mark pleaded. I could hear the desperation in his voice. "Please, just for 5 minutes." My dad looked at me. I think he wanted me to say no. Part of me wanted to say no. But another part of me needed to hear what lies he would spin. I needed to see his face as he said them. I gave a small nod. My father sighed and stepped aside. Mark came into the room. He looked terrible. His tie was loosened. His hair was a mess. His eyes were red. He looked at me, and it was like he was seeing me for the first time. "Amelia," he started. "I am so sorry." "Sorry for what, Mark?" I asked. My voice was steady. I was surprised by how calm I sounded. "Are you sorry you had a baby? Or are you sorry I found out?" "I was going to tell you," he said, taking a step closer. Chloe put a hand on my shoulder, a silent warning for him to keep his distance. I was. I just needed to find the right time. "The right time?" I repeated. You thought the right time was after I legally bound my life and my finances to yours? After I stood up in front of our friends and family and promised to love and trust you forever? I panicked, he said. Sarah told me she was pregnant months ago. I did not know what to do. I love you. I did not want to lose you. So you decided to lie instead, I stated. It was not a question. I was trying to protect you, he insisted. That was when the first crack appeared in my calm exterior. Protect me? I asked, my voice rising. You were not protecting me. You were protecting yourself. You were protecting your perfect little life that I paid for. The words hung in the air. The wedding. The house. I had put the down payment on our house. It was from an inheritance my grandmother had left me. I had poured my savings into our wedding. I had wanted it to be special. He had let me. He had let me pay for our future while he was funding his past. That is not fair, he said. Is it not? I countered. Tell me, Mark, did you use our money to help her? To pay for things for the baby? He hesitated. That was all the confirmation I needed. The knot in my stomach tightened. The betrayal was not just emotional. It was financial. He had been stealing from me. I wanted to handle it on my own, he said weakly. I did not want to burden you. It is a little late for that, I said. I stood up. I felt a surge of cold fury. I want you to leave. Amelia, please, he begged. We can fix this. We can go to counseling. We can work through it. I love you. Love? I asked. The word sounded foreign. You do not know what love is. Love is not deception. Love is not making the person you are supposed to cherish the star of her own public humiliation. I walked to the door and opened it. Get out. He looked at me, his face crumbling. He saw the finality in my eyes. He turned and walked out of the room without another word. My father followed him out, closing the door firmly behind him. As soon as the door clicked shut, my legs gave out. I sank to the floor. Chloe was there, wrapping her arms around me. The tears finally came. They were not tears of sadness. They were tears of rage. I cried for the woman I was this morning, so full of hope. I cried for the fool I had been. And as I cried, a new feeling started to take root in the empty space in my chest. It was not grief. It was determination. He was not going to get away with this. He had not just broken my heart. He had tried to ruin my life. I would not let him. This was not over. This was just the beginning. The next morning, I woke up feeling like I had been hit by a truck. My eyes were swollen and my head ached. For a split second, I thought it was all a horrible nightmare. Then the reality of the baby, the reception, and Mark's face came crashing back down on me. Chloe was already awake, sitting in a chair by the window with a cup of coffee. She gave me a small, sad smile. How are you feeling? She asked. Like an idiot, I said, sitting up. A very public idiot. You are not an idiot, she said firmly. You were deceived. There is a big difference. My parents came in from their room. My mom had a bag with some of my clothes from our house. She had gone over early in the morning to get them. She said Mark was there, sitting on the couch looking like a ghost. She had not spoken a word to him. We need to make a plan, my dad said, all business. He was a lawyer and his mind immediately went to logistics and strategy. First thing is an annulment. This marriage was based on fraud. We can get it wiped away like it never happened. The word annulment sounded so clean, so simple. But my life felt messy and complicated. What about the house? I asked. My money is in that house. We will handle that, he said. We will get every penny back, and the wedding gifts, and the cost of the wedding itself. He was already making a list on a notepad. While he focused on the legal and financial side, I was stuck on the personal betrayal. It was not just Mark. It was his mother, Eleanor. Her face at the reception was burned into my memory. She knew. How long had she known? And why had she let me go through with it? I need to know everything, I said to Chloe after my parents left to make some calls. I cannot just walk away without understanding the whole truth. What are you going to do? She asked. I'm going to investigate, I said. A plan was starting to form in my mind. It was a risky plan, but I needed answers. I still have access to our shared bank accounts. He probably has not thought to lock me out yet. He still thinks he can fix this. Chloe nodded slowly. Okay, let's see what we can find. We logged into the bank account on her laptop. At first, everything looked normal. Mortgage payments, utility bills, grocery expenses. But then I started looking closer at the credit card statements. There were small, recurring charges. $50 here, $100 there, to a pharmacy near an address I did not recognize. There were purchases from a baby store, diapers, formula, a car seat. He bought them a car seat, I whispered. The mundanity of the purchase made it feel so much more real. He was not just sending money. He was actively participating in this other life. Then I found something bigger. A series of cash withdrawals over the past 6 months. They were always for a few $100s at a time, from an ATM near the same address as the pharmacy. It added up to thousands of dollars. He was bleeding you dry, Chloe said, her voice filled with disgust. The worst discovery was a large wire transfer from our joint savings account from 3 months ago. It was for $10,000. The memo line was blank, but I knew. I knew exactly where it had gone. It was for her, for the baby, for their life. I remembered that week perfectly. Mark had told me there was a family emergency. He said his cousin needed surgery and he had to lend him the money. He had seemed so stressed, so sincere. I had comforted him. I had told him not to worry. That family comes first. I felt sick to my stomach. My own words were mocking me. This is not just a guy who made a mistake, I said, my voice shaking with a cold rage. This is a calculated long-term fraud. Chloe put her arm around me. What is your next move? I am going to talk to his mother, I said. She is the key. She knew. I want to see her lie to my face. I found Eleanor's number and called her. She answered on the second ring. Amelia, dear, she said, her voice dripping with fake sympathy. I am so sorry about that dreadful scene. Sarah has always been unstable. I want to talk to you, Eleanor, I said, cutting her off. In person. I have some questions. She hesitated. I do not know if that is a good idea right now. Emotions are running high. Meet me at the cafe near your house in an hour, I said. If you do not, I will come to your house instead. And I promise you, you do not want me to do that. There was a long pause. Fine, she finally said. 1 hour. I hung up the phone. Chloe looked at me with a mixture of worry and admiration. Are you sure about this? I have never been more sure of anything in my life, I replied. She was in on it. She watched me plan my wedding. She came to my bridal shower. She smiled in all the pictures. I want to know why. I got dressed. I chose a simple black dress. I felt like I was going to a funeral. The funeral for the life I thought I had. As I walked to the cafe, I rehearsed my questions. I would be calm. I would be methodical. I would not let her see how much she had broken me. I would be the prosecutor, and she would be the witness. And I would get the truth out of her, one way or another. This was no longer about saving my marriage. It was about salvaging my dignity and getting justice for what they had done to me. The investigation had begun. The cafe was a quaint little place where Eleanor and her friends often met. I chose a table in the back corner, a spot that was quiet and offered some privacy. I ordered a black coffee and waited. I felt strangely calm. The rage had cooled into a solid core of purpose inside me. I was not here as a grieving bride. I was here as a woman on a mission. Eleanor arrived exactly on time. She was dressed impeccably, as always. Her hair was perfectly coiffed, her makeup subtle but flawless. She looked like the picture of a respectable upper-class mother. The image made me sick. She slid into the booth opposite me, forcing a tight, sympathetic smile. "Amelia, thank you for meeting me," she began. "I know this must be terribly difficult for you." "Let's skip the pleasantries, Eleanor," I said, my voice even. "I have one question for you. How long have you known about the baby?" Her smile faltered. She picked up a sugar packet and started fiddling with it. "Mark only told me recently," she said, not meeting my eyes. He was so distraught. He did not know how to handle it. "Recently?" I repeated. "How recently? A week? A month?" "A few months ago," she admitted. Her gaze fixed on the sugar packet she was now shredding into tiny pieces. "When he found out Sarah was not going to handle the situation on her own." The implication was ugly and clear. They had hoped Sarah would get rid of the baby. When she did not, they moved on to Plan B, hiding it from me. "So you have known for months," I stated. "You knew when you helped me choose my wedding dress? You knew when you sat in the front row of the church and watched me marry your son. You knew." "I was trying to protect my son," she said, her voice becoming defensive. "He made a terrible mistake, but he loves you. I did not want to see his life ruined." "His life?" I asked, incredulous. "What about my life? Did you ever once think about me in all of this? Did you think about the fact that you were letting me invest my heart, my future, and my money into a complete lie?" "Money is not everything, Amelia," she said dismissively. That was the wrong thing to say. "Really?" I countered, leaning forward. "That is interesting, because it seems like my money was very important to Mark. I found the payments, Eleanor. The payments to Sarah, the cash withdrawals, and I found the $10,000 transfer for his cousin's surgery." Eleanor's face went pale. The pretense of composure was gone. She looked trapped. "He was just trying to be responsible," she stammered. "He had to support his child." "With my money," I finished for her. "Money from my inheritance. Money I put into our joint account because I trusted my husband. I trusted your son." "It was a difficult situation," she said, wringing her hands. "We were going to tell you. After the wedding, when things had settled down, we thought it would be easier for you to accept it then." "Easier to accept?" She meant trapped. "They thought if I was legally his wife, with our finances merged and our lives intertwined, it would be too difficult, too messy for me to leave. They had not just lied to me, they had set a trap for me. The wedding was the bait." "You were not going to tell me," I said with chilling certainty. "You were going to let me find out eventually, years from now perhaps. Or maybe you hoped I never would. You underestimated Sarah. You thought she would keep quiet forever, but she did not." Eleanor was silent. She had no more lies to offer. She just sat there, exposed. "You are just as guilty as he is, Eleanor," I said, my voice low and steady. "You are his mother. You should have taught him to be a better man. Instead, you taught him how to be a better liar. You helped him deceive me. You smiled at me. You hugged me. You called me daughter. All while knowing you were leading me into a disaster." She finally looked at me. There were tears in her eyes, but I felt no pity. They were tears for herself, for her son, for being caught. They were not for me. "What do you want, Amelia?" she whispered. "I want you to know that I see you," I said. "I see exactly who you are. And I want you to know that this is not over. You and Mark are not going to just walk away from this. I will make sure of that." I stood up from the table, leaving my untouched coffee behind. I looked down at her one last time. She looked small and pathetic. The powerful matriarch I had once admired was just a weak woman who had enabled her son's worst impulses. "Enjoy your coffee, Eleanor," I said. Then I turned and walked out of the cafe without looking back. As I walked down the street, the cool air felt good on my face. I had not gotten an apology, but I had gotten something better. I had gotten confirmation. My suspicions were not just suspicions anymore. They were facts. This was a conspiracy. And Eleanor was a willing participant. The conversation had not given me closure, but it had given me fuel. The fight was just getting started, and now I knew exactly who I was fighting against. It was not just Mark. It was his whole family. And I was going to take them down. Back at the hotel, I told Chloe and my parents everything Eleanor had said. My father's face grew darker with every word. When I finished, he was silent for a long moment. "This is worse than I thought," he said finally. "This is premeditated fraud. The annulment is the least of their worries now." "What do you mean?" I asked. "The money, Amelia," he said. "The inheritance you put into the house. The savings he drained. He did it all under false pretenses. He entered into this marriage fraudulently with the intent to secure your assets, and his mother was complicit." Chloe, who had been listening quietly, spoke up. "There might be more," she said. "If he was this deceitful about the baby and the money, what else could he be hiding?" She was right. The web of lies felt vast and tangled. We had only pulled on one thread. Who knew what else we would find if we kept pulling? "We need more than just bank statements," my dad said. "We need something concrete. Something that proves intent." "Like what?" I asked. "Emails, text messages, anything that shows them discussing this plan before the wedding," he replied. My heart sank. "I do not have access to his personal email or his phone." "Maybe you do," Chloe said, a thoughtful look on her face. "You know the password to his laptop, right? The one he uses for work and personal stuff?" I did. It was the name of his childhood dog. Simple and sentimental. It made me feel sick to think about it now. "He probably changed it," I said. "Maybe not," Chloe countered. "He still thinks he can win you back. He is in damage control mode, not lockdown mode. He might not have thought that far ahead." It was a long shot, but it was the only shot we had. The problem was the laptop was at our house. The house I could not bear to set foot in again. "I will go," Chloe said immediately. "You should not have to. Give me your key. I will go over there, tell him you sent me to get the rest of your things. While I am packing your stuff, I will grab the laptop." "It is too risky," I said. "What if he does not let you?" "He will," she said with confidence. "He wants to look cooperative. He wants to seem like the good guy who is giving you space. It is all part of his act." My dad agreed. "It is a good plan. Chloe is right. He is trying to manage you, not fight you. He will not see it coming." So we made a plan. Chloe would go to the house the next day. She would take a few empty suitcases to make it look convincing. She would pack my clothes, my books, my personal items. And somewhere in between, she would slip Mark's laptop into her bag. The next 24 hours were agonizing. I paced the hotel room, imagining all the things that could go wrong. What if Mark was there? What if he got suspicious? What if he had already wiped the computer clean? Chloe called me when she was on her way. "Wish me luck," she said. "Be careful," I told her. An hour later, which felt like a lifetime, she called me back. "I am out, and I have it," she said. I let out a breath I did not realize I had been holding. "Was he there?" "No," she said. "The house was empty. It was eerie. Your wedding pictures were still up everywhere." The thought sent a shiver down my spine. Our smiling faces, a monument to a lie. When Chloe got back to the hotel, she placed the laptop on the table like it was a holy relic. We all gathered around. My hands were shaking as I typed in the password. Buster. It worked. The screen lit up with his desktop background. It was a picture of us, from our engagement trip. I quickly clicked away from it. "Where do we start?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. "Email," my dad said. "Search for Sarah's name. Search for the word baby. Search for money. I opened his email account. I typed Sarah's name into the search bar. Hundreds of emails popped up, stretching back over a year. My heart pounded as I clicked on the oldest one. The subject line was, "We need to talk." I started reading. And with every email, another piece of my heart turned to stone. The story was all there, in black and white. His shock at her pregnancy, his attempts to convince her not to go through with it, her refusal, then his slow, calculated acceptance of the situation and the beginning of the cover-up. There were emails about money. She would ask for help with rent, with bills, with baby supplies. He would reply, telling her to be discreet, to not use her name on the transfers. He was creating a paper trail that was designed to be untraceable. But the most damning emails were not between him and Sarah. They were between him and his mother. I searched for Eleanor's name, and what I found made my blood run cold. There was an email from 6 months ago, from Eleanor to Mark. The subject was the Amelia situation. "Mark," it began, "we need to be very careful about this. If Amelia finds out before the wedding, she will leave. And you know we cannot afford for that to happen. Her inheritance is tied to that house. You need to keep Sarah happy and quiet until after you are married. Once everything is legally combined, it will be much harder for her to walk away. She is a sensible girl. She will not want to cause a scene and lose everything. We just need to manage this for a few more months." I had to read it twice to believe it. It was a written confession, a blueprint for their entire deception. They had not just hoped I would not leave. They had financially engineered a situation to make it as difficult as possible for me to do so. They had targeted my inheritance. They had seen me not as a person to love, but as a resource to be exploited. "I found it," I said, my voice hollow. I turned the laptop around so my dad and Chloe could see the screen. My dad read the email, his face grim. "Print it," he said. "Print everything. Every email, every bank statement. We have them. This is undeniable proof of conspiracy to commit fraud." Chloe looked at me, her eyes full of fury on my behalf. "These people are monsters," she whispered. I felt a strange sense of detachment. The pain was so deep, so vast, it was almost abstract. It was like this had happened to someone else. But the email on the screen was real. The plan was real. And the consequences for them would be very, very real. We spent the rest of the day printing documents. We created a thick binder, a meticulously organized history of their lies. Each page was a nail in the coffin of the life I had thought I was building. With each piece of paper that came out of the printer, my resolve hardened. This was no longer just about getting my money back. This was about justice. They had tried to trap me, to control me, to use me. They thought I was a sensible girl who would not want to cause a scene. They were about to find out just how wrong they were. I was not going to be managed. I was not going to be quiet. I was going to be the scene. The biggest scene they had ever imagined. The next few days were a blur of activity. My father connected me with a shark of a divorce lawyer named Brenda. She specialized in high-conflict cases involving financial fraud. When I walked into her office with my binder of evidence, her eyes lit up. "This is not a divorce case," she said after reviewing the documents for less than 10 minutes. "This is a criminal case wrapped in an annulment. They did not just lie to you. They committed wire fraud and likely mail fraud and forgery, depending on what else we find." The word forgery hung in the air. "What do you mean, forgery?" I asked. Brenda pointed to a line item on one of the bank statements. "This large withdrawal here, for the house. You said you put down the majority of the down payment from your inheritance, correct?" "Yes," I confirmed. "It was over $200,000. Mark contributed about $50,000. "And the house is in both of your names?" "Yes." Brenda tapped her pen on the desk. "I have a hunch. He was desperate for money to keep Sarah quiet. The $10,000 he wired her was a stopgap. I am willing to bet he went for a bigger prize. The equity in your house." "How could he do that?" I asked. I would have had to sign papers. People forge signatures all the time, Brenda said grimly. Especially when they think they can get away with it. We need to pull the title records and any loan documents associated with your property since you purchased it. My father, who was in the meeting with me, nodded. We can have a title search done by this afternoon. While we waited for the results, a new layer of dread settled over me. Had he really gone that far? Had he forged my name to steal the money my grandmother had left me? The thought was so monstrous it was hard to comprehend. Later that day, Brenda called. Her voice was cold and professional, but I could hear the undercurrent of anger. We found it, she said. He took out a home equity line of credit 2 months ago. For $100,000. The documents were filed with the county. And your signature is on every single page. I felt the air leave my lungs. I never signed anything, I whispered. I know, Brenda said. He forged it. We compared the signature on the loan documents to your signature on the original mortgage papers. It is a decent forgery, but it is not perfect. A handwriting expert will tear it apart. $100,000. He had stolen $100,000 from the equity of our home. My home? My inheritance. He had done it behind my back and used my own name to do it. Where did the money go? I asked, though I already knew the answer. We are subpoenaing the bank records for the account it was deposited into, Brenda said, but the loan application states the purpose was for home improvements. I doubt you have a new kitchen, do you? No, I said numbly. We do not. The pieces were all clicking into place. The lies were not just about a baby. They were about a massive, systematic theft. He had been siphoning money from me from the very beginning in ways both small and large. The baby was just the catalyst that had blown the whole scheme open. So what happens now? I asked. Now we have leverage, Brenda said, and I could almost hear her smile through the phone. We have 2 paths. The first is the public path. We file for the annulment and we hand over this evidence to the district attorney. Mark and his mother will be charged with multiple felonies. They will likely go to prison. The thought of Mark and Eleanor in prison was both terrifying and satisfying. What is the second path? I asked. The second path is the private one, she explained. We use this evidence as a hammer. We arrange a meeting. We lay it all out for them. We tell them that if they do not meet every single one of our demands, the evidence goes to the police. We get you everything you want. The house, every penny he took, damages for emotional distress. And they get to stay out of jail. But their lives as they know them will be over. They will be ruined, I said. Financially and socially, yes, Brenda confirmed. Which punishment do you think is more fitting for people like them? Public disgrace and incarceration, or a quiet, complete annihilation of their wealth and status? I thought about it. I thought about Eleanor and her obsession with appearances. I thought about Mark and his pride. Prison felt too simple, too clean. I wanted them to live with what they had done. I wanted them to wake up every day in the wreckage of the lives they had destroyed. The second path, I said with conviction. I want to watch them sign it all away. I want to be in the room when they realize they have lost everything. Excellent choice, Brenda said. Let's set a meeting. I suggest a neutral location. Your parents' house, perhaps? It will be more comfortable for you, and it will put them at a disadvantage. So the plan was set. Brenda would draft the settlement agreement. It would be brutal and non-negotiable. I would call Mark and Eleanor and invite them to a family meeting at my parents' home to discuss our future. They would walk in expecting to negotiate, to manipulate, to emotionally blackmail me into taking Mark back. They would walk into a legal ambush. I made the call. Mark answered, his voice full of a pathetic, hopeful tremor. Amelia, I am so glad you called. Mark, I said, my voice devoid of all emotion. I want to talk. Both of you. You and your mother. Come to my parents' house on Saturday at noon. We need to decide what we are going to do. Of course, he said. practically tripping over his words with relief. "We will be there. Anything you want. We can work this out, Amelia. I know we can." "We will see," I said, and hung up the phone. As I put the phone down, I looked at the binder of evidence sitting on the table. It was a testament to their greed and my foolishness. But it was also my weapon. Saturday was 2 days away. For 2 days, they would live in a state of false hope, believing they still had a chance to control the narrative, to fix their mistake. They had no idea that their fate was already sealed, printed out and organized in a 3-ring binder. They were walking into the end of their world. And I was the one who was going to be holding the door open for them. The 2 days leading up to the meeting were the longest of my life. I barely slept. I ate without tasting anything. My mind was a constant loop of their emails, the forged signature, Eleanor's smug face in the cafe. I was a bundle of nerves and cold, hard anger. Chloe stayed with me the whole time, a constant source of support. She would make me tea, force me to watch mindless television, and remind me over and over again that I was doing the right thing. "You are taking your power back," she told me hours before the meeting. "Do not forget that. They built this whole thing on the idea that you were weak. Show them how strong you are." My parents were rocks. They turned their home into a war room. My father had gone over every line of the settlement agreement with Brenda. It was a work of art. It stipulated a full annulment, citing fraud. It demanded that Mark sign over his half of the house to me, effective immediately, making me the sole owner. It required him to repay the $100,000 from the fraudulent loan, plus the $10,000 he had wired to Sarah, plus an additional $50,000 in damages for emotional distress. All other wedding gifts and costs were to be reimbursed to me and my family. Finally, it included a signed confession, a detailed account of the financial fraud, the forgery, and the conspiracy with his mother. This confession was our insurance policy. If he ever stepped out of line, we would release it. Brenda was not going to be at the meeting initially. That was part of the plan. She would be waiting at a nearby coffee shop, ready to come over the moment I gave her the signal. The first part of the meeting was for me. I needed to confront them myself, without a lawyer present. I needed to see their faces when the truth came out. Not from a legal professional, but from the woman they had so thoroughly wronged. At 11:55, the doorbell rang. My stomach lurched. This was it. My dad went to the door. I stood in the living room with my mom and Chloe. I had placed the binder on the coffee table, closed. It looked innocuous. Just a simple white binder. Mark and Eleanor walked in. They both looked somber and contrite. It was a well-rehearsed performance. Mark was holding a bouquet of roses, my favorite. The sight of them made me want to be sick. Eleanor was wearing a soft, motherly sweater. They were playing their parts perfectly. The repentant son and the supportive mother, here to beg forgiveness. "Amelia," Mark said, his voice thick with emotion as he held out the flowers. "Thank you for doing this. It means the world to me that you are willing to talk." I ignored the flowers. "Sit down," I said, gesturing to the sofa opposite me. They sat, perched on the edge of the cushions, looking at me with carefully crafted expressions of sadness. "We are so sorry, Amelia," Eleanor began. "What Mark did was wrong. He knows that. But he loves you so much. We are hoping you can find it in your heart to forgive him. To let us try to make this right." "Make it right?" I repeated, my voice dangerously quiet. "How do you propose we do that? Eleanor? How do you fix a lie of this magnitude?" "We can go to counseling." Mark jumped in. "We can be honest about everything from now on. I will do whatever it takes to earn back your trust. The baby, Leo, he does not have to be a part of our lives if you do not want him to be. I will support him financially, but we can build our own family." The casual way he offered to discard his own child for my benefit was perhaps the most disgusting thing he had said yet. It proved he had no real character, no moral core. He was just a creature of convenience. "So your plan is to lie to your son now too?" I asked. "To pretend he does not exist so you can have a comfortable life? That seems to be your solution for everything, Mark. Just hide the inconvenient people away. He flinched. That is not what I meant. Let's talk about that financial support, I said, changing tactics. I leaned forward and placed my hand on the white binder. It must be difficult, supporting a whole other family on the side. It must get expensive. They exchanged a quick, nervous glance. I have been managing, Mark said vaguely. Have you? I asked. I opened the binder. The first page was a copy of the bank statement showing the $10,000 wire transfer. I slid it across the coffee table toward them. Tell me again about your cousin's surgery, Mark. Mark stared at the paper. The color drained from his face. He is looking at me now, and I can see the panic starting to bloom in his eyes. He opens his mouth, but no sound comes out. It was a difficult situation, Eleanor said, stepping in to save him. He was under a lot of pressure. Pressure, I repeated. I turned the page in the binder and slid another document across the table. It was the loan agreement for the $100,000 home equity line of credit. I had highlighted the signature line. Were you under pressure when you signed my name to this, Mark? He looks at the document. This is the moment. The performance is over. The real Mark is here now. He is terrified. He looks from the paper to me, his eyes begging. But there is no mercy in my face. There is nothing but ice. Eleanor gasped. She grabbed the paper and stared at it. Mark, what is this? She asked, her voice a horrified whisper. But I knew she was just acting. She had to have known. The money had to have gone somewhere. This is fraud, Eleanor, I said calmly. And this, I added, sliding the printed email between them across the table, is conspiracy. The one where you advised your son to trap me in a marriage to get control of my inheritance. Eleanor read the email. A small, strangled sound escaped her lips. She dropped the paper as if it had burned her. The mask was completely gone. She looked old and frail and wicked. You did not just lie about a baby, I said, my voice rising with every word. You systematically stole from me. You forged my name. You conspired to trap me. You targeted me for my money. You did not love me. You used me. Mark finally found his voice. Amelia, I can pay it back, he stammered. I will pay it all back. Just please do not do this. Do what, Mark? I asked. Tell the truth? We can handle this privately, Eleanor pleaded, tears now streaming down her face. Real tears this time. There is no need to involve anyone else. We can give you whatever you want. I am so glad you said that, I said. I stood up and walked over to the phone. Because what I want is for my lawyer to come in and explain your options. I made the call. Brenda, we are ready for you. A few minutes later, the doorbell rang again. My dad let Brenda in. She walked into the living room carrying a briefcase. She was a vision of corporate power, and Mark and Eleanor visibly shrank in her presence. Good afternoon, Brenda said, her voice crisp and businesslike. She did not even glance at them. She addressed me. Amelia, have you explained the situation? I have, I said. Excellent. Brenda opened her briefcase and took out 2 thick documents and 2 pens. She placed them on the coffee table in front of Mark and Eleanor. This is a settlement agreement and a legal confession. You will sign both. Now. Mark stared at the documents as if they were venomous snakes. I need to talk to my own lawyer. You can, Brenda said with a shrug. But the moment you walk out that door without signing, I am walking into the district attorney's office. My meeting is already tentatively scheduled. The evidence in that binder is more than enough to secure a conviction for multiple felonies. You will be arrested. Your mother will be arrested as an accomplice. Your assets will be frozen. You will go to prison. Or you can sign these papers. You will lose the house. You will repay every cent you stole, and you will walk away from this with your freedom but nothing else. The choice is yours. You have 5 minutes to decide. The room was silent except for the ticking of the grandfather clock in the hall. Mark and Eleanor looked at each other. I could see the frantic, silent conversation passing between them. Their whole world had been reduced to a single choice. On a coffee table, in a living room they had once been welcomed into. They had no cards left to play. They had no lies left to tell. They were utterly and completely trapped. And it was a beautiful thing to watch. Mark picked up the pen. His hand was shaking so violently he could barely hold it. He looked at me one last time, his eyes searching for something. Pity, forgiveness, a memory of the love he had thrown away. He found nothing. I just stared back at him, my expression unreadable. He had made me a fool. He had made me a victim. But today, right now, I was neither of those things. I was the person who held his entire future in her hands, and I was about to close my fist. He bent over the table and signed the papers. His signature was a jagged, desperate scrawl. Then he pushed the documents over to his mother. Eleanor, weeping silently, signed the confession as a witness. It was done. In the space of a few pen strokes, my marriage was over. My house was mine, and my stolen money was on its way back to me. Brenda gathered the signed documents. A courier will be by your home tomorrow to collect a certified check for the full amount of the repayment and damages, she said to Mark. Do not be late. She then turned to me. Congratulations, Amelia. I will file the annulment papers this afternoon. She gave me a small professional nod and saw herself out. Mark and Eleanor stood up. They looked broken. They did not look at me. They walked toward the door like zombies. My father stood there, holding it open for them. As Mark passed me, he stopped. I did love you, he whispered, his voice hoarse. I did not respond. I did not believe him. And even if it were true, it did not matter. Love was not an excuse for cruelty. It was not a defense for fraud. His love, whatever it was, had been worthless. They left. My dad closed the door behind them, the sound of the lock clicking into place echoing the finality of the moment. The three of us, me, my mom, and Chloe, stood in the silent living room. Then my mom started to cry. Tears of relief. Chloe wrapped me in a fierce hug. You did it, she whispered in my ear. You absolutely destroyed them. I did not feel triumphant. I did not feel happy. I just felt quiet. The storm had passed. The rage had been spent. All that was left was the calm, quiet reality of my new life. A life I had to rebuild from the wreckage. But it was my life. It was free, and it was mine. I looked at the roses Mark had brought, which were now sitting forgotten on a side table. I picked them up, walked them to the kitchen, and dropped them into the trash can. I was done with things that looked beautiful but were built on lies. I was ready for something real. In the weeks that followed, the terms of the settlement were executed flawlessly. The check arrived via courier the next day. The deed to the house was transferred into my name alone. The annulment was processed by the court with record speed. Legally, my marriage to Mark had never happened. It was a phantom, a bad dream that had been erased from the official record. But of course, it was not that simple to erase it from my life. The first few weeks were a strange mix of relief and emptiness. I stayed with my parents. The house, my house now, felt tainted. I could not bring myself to go back there yet, to sleep in the bed we had shared, to cook in the kitchen where we had planned our future. Chloe was my savior during that time. She forced me out of the house. We went for long walks, saw movies, and had dinners where the only rule was that we were not allowed to talk about Mark. She let me grieve, not for him, but for the life I thought I was going to have. One day, about a month after the confrontation, I got a call from an unknown number. I almost did not answer, but something made me press the button. Hello? Is this Amelia? A woman's voice asked. It was hesitant. Yes, who is this? This is Sarah. I froze. I had not thought about her since the wedding. She was the catalyst, the bomb that had detonated my life. But in the ensuing war, she had become a footnote. "What do you want?" I asked, my voice cold. I I wanted to apologize," she said, and she sounded like she meant it. "For what I did at your wedding, it was a terrible thing to do to you. You did not deserve that." I was silent for a moment, processing this. "Why did you do it?" I asked. "He pushed me too far," she explained, her voice cracking. "He kept promising he would tell you. First, it was after the engagement. Then, after we moved into the new house. Then, it was always after the wedding. He was never going to tell you. He was going to keep me and Leo a secret forever. He paid my rent, he bought diapers, but he would not publicly acknowledge his own son. I looked at our baby, and I just snapped. I realized he was never going to do the right thing unless he was forced to. I am sorry that you were the collateral damage." Her words rang with a painful truth. She was another woman Mark had lied to, another life he had tried to control and manage. We were not enemies. We were victims of the same man. "He is your problem now," I said, my voice softening slightly. "I hear he does not have much money anymore." She laughed, a sad, humorless sound. "You can say that again. I am suing him for child support, but it is like trying to get blood from a stone. He lost his job. His parents had to sell their big house. They are living in a small apartment now. Word got out about what he did. Not the specifics, but enough. No one wants to hire a man who committed fraud against his own wife." I felt a grim sense of satisfaction. The confession letter. I had not released it, but news travels fast in our town. Someone must have talked. The social ruin Brenda had predicted had come to pass. "I am sorry for what he did to you, Sarah," I said, and I was surprised to find that I meant it. "And for what he is doing to your son." "Thank you," she whispered. "That means a lot. For what it is worth, I hope you find happiness." We hung up. The conversation left me feeling unsettled, but also strangely lighter. It was another loose end tied up, another piece of the story slotted into place. A few weeks after that, I finally felt ready to face the house. Chloe went with me. We walked through the rooms, which felt like a museum of my old life. The wedding photos were still on the mantelpiece. I took them down one by one and put them in a box. We spent the whole weekend packing. We packed up all of Mark's clothes, his books, his belongings. We packed up every gift his family had ever given me. We packed up the wedding presents that were still in their boxes. I donated his clothes to a homeless shelter. I sold the expensive things online. The wedding gifts I returned to the people who had sent them with a simple, polite note explaining that the marriage had been annulled. It was a painstaking, emotionally draining process, but with every box that left the house, I felt like I was reclaiming my space. I was cleansing my home of his presence, of his lies. When it was all done, the house felt empty. But it also felt clean. It felt like mine. I decided to redecorate. I painted the walls a bright, cheerful yellow. I bought new furniture that was my style, not a compromise. I turned his old office into a small art studio for myself, a hobby I had neglected while I was with him. I started to heal. The anger faded, leaving behind a hard-won wisdom. I had learned a brutal lesson about trust, but I had also learned that I was stronger than I ever thought possible. I had faced the worst kind of betrayal, and I had not just survived. I had fought back and won. 6 months after the wedding I had a housewarming party. It was not a big affair, just my parents, Chloe, and a few other close friends. We sat in my newly decorated living room drinking champagne and celebrating my new beginning. "To Amelia," Chloe said, raising her glass. "To the strongest person I know. May your future be as bright as these walls." Everyone cheered. I looked around at the faces of the people who truly loved me, the ones who had stood by me when my world fell apart. I felt a wave of gratitude so intense it almost brought me to tears. Later that evening, after everyone had left, I was cleaning up when I saw a letter on the coffee table. It must have been dropped in the mail slot. It was an envelope with my name on it, written in Eleanor's familiar, elegant script. My first instinct was to throw it away. I did not want to hear from her. I did not want her apologies or her excuses. But curiosity got the better of me. I opened it. The letter was short. Amelia, it read, I know you have no reason to listen to anything I have to say, but I need you to know that I am sorry. Not just for what Mark did, but for what I did. I failed as a mother. I was so obsessed with maintaining our family's image and financial security that I forgot to care about basic human decency. I see that now. We have lost everything. Our home, our friends, our reputation. Mark is a broken man. I live every day with the knowledge that I helped break him by enabling his weakness. I do not ask for your forgiveness. I do not deserve it. I just wanted you to know that you have won. I hope that brings you some peace. I read the letter twice. It was not an excuse. It was a surrender, a confession of a different kind. It did not change anything, but it confirmed what I already knew. Their lives were ruined. They were living in the consequences of their actions. Did it bring me peace? I was not sure. My peace did not come from their suffering. My peace came from my own strength. It came from the love of my family and friends. It came from the quiet satisfaction of rebuilding my life on my own terms. I folded the letter and put it away. I did not need it. I walked over to the window and looked out at the quiet street. My street. In my house. My life. The past was a scar, but it was not an open wound anymore. It was a part of my story, a reminder of the battle I had fought and won. They thought a wedding ring was a cage to trap me in. They had learned the hard way that for me it had been a starting gun. The race was over, and I had won.